Hello everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Today we're diving into flip fluids, exploring some cool ways to control the solver to get controllable and nice looking water splash effect. Along the way I will also share some workflow tips that will hopefully make your next fluid simulation smoother and more efficient. You will find the HIP files in the description, including the lighting setup in Redshift. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and share your feedback down below. For those who wants to go even deeper, I launched my Patreon in January, where I release monthly tutorials and HIP files. You can always subscribe for free to stay updated. So let's go. So let's create a sphere. Let's go inside, switch it to polygons, give it some subdivision. And let's just add some mountain for a noise. Let's just find something. Really doesn't matter, something like this. And now we'll subdivide it. And let's add the null. So this will be our main source. And now is the part where we will make the velocity prediction and velocity direction. So let's go ahead and add some scatter points and scatter some points. Let's uncheck the relax iteration and reduce the points like something around 15. And now we need the Voronoi fracture. And we can see our fracture points with exploded view. This is just to display, we don't need this. Let's organize it a bit. Now let's assemble those. Create packed primitive. And let's do edit. So this is the important part where we will draw our velocity direction. So really quick drawing here, which I'm not good at. So this is our source and we have fracture points. So we will move these fracture points away from the source. Let's say one will be here, one will be here, something like this. And then we will subtract the original position with the new position of these pieces. So our vector will look like something like this. Something like this. Something like this. So wider the p scale, the wider our velocity will be in that. In that sense, you can imagine like as wider splash versus those much smaller or narrow. And this is the main idea of this setup. So let's continue. So unlock the selection tool, choose select, make sure we are in primitive modes, and when your mouse in your viewport, hit enter, and it will activate our edit tool. So when you hover, you will see this blue indicator. Now we're ready to edit. Select the piece, for example the one from up, and let's move it up. Sorry, yeah. And of course, the farther you move the pieces, the stronger will be velocity. Something I found that works, usually it's around 10 meters. So I need to go twice more. Let's measure. Yeah, something like this. something like this it works. Let's make it much bigger. Let me move it to the side. And another piece. Something like this. And let's do the sides. Don't try to be too accurate in this stage, because once we preview the simulation, we'll come back and tweak the way we feel like it. This here. What I'm trying to do here mostly is to have pieces in all sides, so we don't have an inactive places. And the lower I go, I will keep the pieces much smaller, so the velocity streams are not huge, just to add some more details, and a couple more in below. Yeah, something like this should be fine. Right now let's go ahead and calculate our velocity. So let's add the point VOP, connect the first input to our Voronoi fracture, and second input our edited Voronoi fracture. I will just organize here a bit, something like this, and I will call it calculate velocity. So first we need to read our second input, so let's do import point attribute, ptnum connect to the ptnum. And we need to subtract this by our original position, which is our first input. So, and the difference, let's connect to the velocity. And if you go ahead and visualize our velocity, which is visualized, okay. You will see that they follow, they point exactly where our new points are. And if we go ahead and unpack our packed points after I edit, you will see exactly that even the scale and orientation, they're aiming to be like their goal pieces. You can even move here, scale down and up, and you will see exactly how it affects. Perfect. I will hide our velocity and I will add points from volume. Points from volume. Let's connect it to our source. I will give some jitter scale, just have some randomness, maybe some certain amount of points, and we need to transfer our velocity into our points. So attribute transfer, and let's choose velocity. And now we have our velocities working. So that's it for this. Now it's time to the flip simulation. So let's do a null here. Let's make a dot network. Let's call it flip splash. Let's copy our flip source because we need to point it in our flip object. And inside we will need just few things. So let's do flip object, flip solver. Let's connect them together. On the flip object, let's switch to input type to particles field. We'll paste here our source, which we just made. And let's go into guides particles and switch to sprites to particles. And now we have this huge container. Let's go to the top view and reduce to something more reasonable. Maybe something like this. We can close our container just to act like a collider. Maybe slightly wider. And let's copy our particle separation to link with our particle separation on our source. Let's give it some resolution. And now let's tweak some settings in the flip solver. So first, in the volume motion, I will switch it to epic swirly. Every time you want to have a clean mesh and smoother simulation, I would go with a swirly epic. So let's play a couple of frames just to get some context. This is a question I get a lot about the link between particle separation and reseeding. So what the logic is here, we will reduce our particle separation to the point that it looks fine. We clearly can see the shape, and we stop there and start adding much more reseeding to fill up all these gaps and sparse areas. So let's start testing. So for example, let's go into 0.001. I will disable our reseeding. Let's run and see. So clearly we can see the shape. We have a couple of sparse areas. For me, I would say this is a pretty good point. Like, there is no number of particles that I can tell you, okay, this is good enough, because it's really depending on your simulation scale, what type of simulation you're doing. So I can see we have a clear shape, couple sparse and less dense points. But also we have very dense points here. So that tells me, okay, this is good enough particle separation, at least for now. At the end of when we do everything and you feel like, okay, we could squeeze some more resolution, you can go lower. But at this point, we'll just stop here and start addressing our reseeding. So let's enable it. We can leave the voxel size, particle voxel at 8, and I will instead add much more surface oversampling. You can go 8, 12. 12 is really good for this case, but there are cases that you might go even 18 or 20, and I will also reduce the death rate. And now let's run a couple frames and see how it looks. You can instantly see our shape is much more cleaner and much more filled. I will just stop the next frame. Yes, and you can see this is much better. We still have some sparse areas here and there, but overall this is a very good point to start. So I will continue with our settings. So one more really important thing in the substep section is this timescale. So the key to simulate really nice and smooth looking splash is to simulate at lower timescale. One benefit you get out of it is you don't need as much substeps when you're simulating at lower timescales. The examples that I share with you I simulated at around 0.1 or 0.15, 0.2. And when you simulating at this speed, you usually need 1 or 2 substeps. You can get away even 1 substeps, to be honest. And only part that will require substeps is when you have a surface tension, which we will enable. And let's reduce something like 5. Surface tension amount is also really relevant to your substeps, to your scene scale and the look you're looking for. So I will start from 5 and we can add or reduce accordingly. Let's say if you're simulating at 1, with this speed probably will need 5, 6, even maybe 7 substeps to look good and without stepping. But here you probably will need just two substeps, 3 at max. Yeah, if you maybe found out, okay, my surface tension doesn't work good, behaves weird, maybe you can go 1 more, but I'm telling you, like 90% of time 2 will work just fine. Okay, so let's add also gravity. Let's choose some nice framing. And I think it's a good time to flipbook and see what we have. So we will be right back after the flipbook. And we're back after the flipbook. This is what we have. I like the shape overall. There are a couple things that we can improve further. So let's move ahead and do those. And then we can do the meshing. One more tip to mention. In most of my splashes you can see I have these secondary bubbles bursting out of the splash. It kinda adds more natural water feel and behavior. There are a couple ways we can achieve those. The first way we can have, if you go into a particle motion, we have these droplets. If we enable this flip, we'll separate those droplets from the sim based on these density controls. And to have this, we need to run our simulation. Then it needs to calculate, and hard to predict what will happen. Yeah. What I like to do to create small bubbles around it, so when splash hits, naturally they spread further from the splash. Let me quickly show you the way I like to do it. So let's do another points from volume and connect it to our source again. And let's leave it something like this. We don't need a lot of them. Now let's do a sphere. And let's do copy to points. Perfect. Now let's give it subdivisions. And let's add attribute noise to control the P scale. So I will switch to float here, P scale. Let's go to a min max. And let's reduce it much lower. Something like this. And let's reduce the element size so it's more random. Now let's do another points from volume to make points out of this scatter that we just made. Let's go inside our flip solver. Let's copy our particle separation, paste it here. Let's do some randomness. And since it is a bit smaller scale, I like to do multiply by 0.5 just to have more points. Let's organize it a bit. and we'll simply merge this with our source just before attribute transfer. So the velocity will affect on also those. We're almost there. One more quick thing to do. If you merge and see, you will have our main source covering all of these bubbles. So what I like to do is make a soft pick and put it right before our main source, which is this. And I like to shrink it slightly down. Maybe let's go 0.1. And if you merge together, you will see that now bubbles are outside of the flip. This will definitely give more interesting look. Okay, so now before we move on, let's do our flip caching setup. Also, what I like to do is to do a flip compress. Let's again copy our particle separation, paste it here. This will reduce our file cache by a lot. So we can test right away. Let's go like 5 frames. Let's middle mouse and see how much memory it uses. So 58 megabyte. And if you middle mouse on the flip compress, it says just 100 kilobytes. So it's a huge difference. Let's say if you cache higher simulation, like this splash, yeah. If you cache like 200 frames, it might be somewhere 20, 30, even 40, 60 gigabyte. And with this, you might reduce the size by 3 times at least, if not 4. So you will save 20, 30 gigabyte on your disk drive. And simply by convert, we can bring our particles back after the caching. So just like this. Now let's go ahead and do a file cache. I will call it FX Splash. And when I'm really happy with the simulation, one last thing I like to really crank up. If you go back to the example, you will see that at some point you have this ripple kind of effect throughout the splash. This will start happening once we reduce our grid size. So if you go, you have by default this GridScale 2, which is great for most simulations, like 99% of time. But if you're going for small scale, really nice detailed simulation, you can go 1.5, just slightly down. This will increase the detail amount much more. But I recommend you do this as a last thing because it will increase the simulation time. So let's go back. I think we all set. I will do, for now I will do just 125 frames. So let's cache it and we'll be back once the cache is done. Okay, so we're back after the caching. It took roughly 35 minutes. Let's go ahead and convert back to particles. And we see our simulation. I like what's happening on the edges, but I'm not a big fan of these long spikes. But for now, let's go to the meshing and we will take care of it later. Okay, for the meshing, we're gonna use the VDB approach, but there is one reason I like to use the particle surface is to visualize our colors. If we go to output and change the convert to particles, it will do nothing basically. But here we have this visualize option and we can switch to velocity. And now we have the same look as we have inside of the flip solver. So just a quick tip how to visualize our particles post sim. And now let's go ahead and start our meshing process. So first we will do VDB from particles. Once again, let's copy our particle separation. Paste it here. The minimum radius, let's put it to 0. Let's wait. And also I like to add extra voxels on my mesh, just to have really nice details. So I like to multiply by 0.5. It will increase our resolution by half. I almost never keep the mesh resolution the same as the particle separation, because when you do additional smoothing on top, you lose quite a few details. But in this case, we will preserve the details. Now let's do VDB Smooth, VDB Smooth SDF. And let's do something like, let's see, maybe 7. Yeah, something like this looks smooth. Now let's do VDB Convert. Convert to polygons, and we have our mesh here. Let's go to our camera. I will try to find a nice angle. Let's see which angle looks the best. Hard to say which angle looks better. For now we can leave it at 0. Now let's do attribute transfer. And we'll transfer our velocity attribute to have the motion blur. If you have other attributes like vorticity or rest, you can transfer as well. And I will give it a couple of samples just to make sure it's smooth. Maybe let's... Yeah, I think this part is more interesting than this. I will adjust the framing. And that's it, the meshing. As you can see, pretty simple, straightforward. So let's go ahead and cache the mesh. So we're back after the meshing. It took another 40 minutes. So basically we had 40 minutes for the simulation and another 40 for the splash. Let's see in animation. So let me play it for you. Yeah, and you see this is what we have. Yeah, I would say we have a cool result. The cool part about this setup is that you can get so many different cool variations by changing just couple settings. I'm talking about our source when we move around our points. Thick ones, super thin ones with nice tendrils, and click simulate and you're surprised, okay, damn, this is looking cool. We will not go over the lighting, but I will include the lighting scene in the HIP file with Redshift. So if you have Redshift, you can just download and play around with it. So I highly suggest you to download the files, or if you're just following along, try your own version, see how many cool ideas you can come up with. And if you would like to share with me, I would love to see it. Hope you found this tutorial helpful and picked up a tip or two. Let me know what do you think and what would you like to see next. Right now my main focus is creating content for Patreon, but I also plan to release tutorials here, maybe a bit less frequently. Feel free to join my Patreon for free to stay updated on what I'm working on. A huge thank you for all my patrons for the support, I really appreciate it. So thanks for watching everyone, take care and see you soon.